Sweet. So welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Juanita, and I am the youth lead organizer for 482 Forward. Lindsay and I work very closely with the Youth Collective, so we are so glad we were able to work with them to put this together. They are so excited to interview you. We might have one student dropping in a little bit later in the meeting, but when they do arrive, we can have an intro just put into the meeting. And just to speak a little bit about 482 Forward, if you haven't heard too much about us, we are a education justice organization, and one of our main focuses is making sure that youth voices are heard. So we like to put youth first and youth voices first. And yeah, we are, like I said, really excited to interview you and a lot of the other school board candidates. So thank you so much for being here. Would you please introduce yourself, your name, pronouns, your connection to DPSCD, and why you wanted to run?
Gotcha. It's an honor and a privilege, to be on here with you, future leaders and all, the great work that you are doing, in the community and doing for our schools and for our people each and every day. My name is Jamaal Muhammad, and I am a candidate for Detroit Public School Board for the November 8th election coming up during this year. I have been employed with Detroit Public Schools. This is my 4th year now. I started off as a teacher, and now I did that teaching for 2 years, and now I've been doing attendance agent for the past 2 years. And the reason why I decided to run for this position is because as I work, throughout the district, and I see some of the different things that are going on, in the district and in our schools that can be improved. But I've also, experienced, personal things that were injustices to me that not only happens to me, but it happens to, unfortunately, some of our students, some of our staff members, and some of our parents. So I saw that there was a change that needed to be made, and I wanted to be that change. And I feel like that because God allowed me to go through what I went through, that it motivated me to be able to stand up so that, we can be able to fight for what we need to fight for, and to most importantly know that our children, are our future. So the greatest investment that we can make is not in a building or is not in something materialistic, but the greatest investment is that we can make, in our children. And being, the young entrepreneur that I am and a community activist, I'm 26 years old. And, it's hard for you to come in and to tell me how you can understand where I'm at if you're not where I'm at. So I want to be able to represent the youth and to be, the youngest school board candidate on the school board that has a voice for the whole school district and for the community, but more so for our young people. So I thank you for being on here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it on to Serbi, who is going to start us off with our second question.
Okay. And Serbi, if you also want to introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Serbi. I'm a Cass Tech senior. I'm part of 482 Forward. I'm part of their youth collective. And my question for you is, how would you engage the community, specifically students and parents, in making decisions with our schools outside of school board meetings? Essentially asking, how will you go above and beyond for our schools?
Thank you so much, for your question. I think the how I would go above and beyond for our students and for our schools and engaging the community is, doing what I'm doing now. In the position that I hold as a attendance agent and being, responsible for making sure that children are in school each and every day. But not only do I do attendance agent, but I think that I, hold on different hats, because not only am I making sure that the attendance is straight, but I'm making sure that the children have the resources that they need. And, when we have back to school events, I'm very active in the community, and I try to, my campaign is bring, bridge, build. So I want to be able to bring our ideals and our skills and our talents and bring, our children, our students together, but to be able to get the community involved, because it takes a village to raise a child. And when the community come together, and when, the students come together and the schools come together, we're on one accord, that goes with being able to host, after school programs. You're being a senior in college and the different things that you have going on. We want to make sure that we're giving you the support to make sure that you actually get the scholarships, that you need to make sure that when you graduate from high school, that you're in college and you have the support that you need, but also if you have a job that you have to do, or maybe some entrepreneurship, being able to bring those different things back into the classroom that deals with social skills, that deals with, entrepreneurship, that deals with helping you to cultivate your trade and your gifts and your talents, that you can be successful. And the way we do that is bringing the community together with the schools, because we have so many different programs that are out there in the community that can be introduced into the school system to be able to bridge that gap that we have. So being able to, reach out to, the mayor's office, who I have a great relationship with, being in, the city council members or the politicians, being able to bring all of us together and be able to offer programs, and also be able to have a school board, a youth school board, that I feel like that we should act, because you have the school board that deals with school board meetings, but I feel like there should be a youth school board that's able to advise and be able to bring the ideas and skills and talents to the board. So those are some of the things I want to be able to enact.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. And
welcome.
I'll pass it to Lindsay to ask the next question.
All right, thank you. So my name is Lindsay, I, she, and they pronouns, and I'm the Deputy Director of Youth Organizing with 482 Forward. And just to share a little bit about these questions, the youth were working on these all summer, researching exactly what a school board does, how schools are funded, and that kind of stuff. So that's how they came up with these questions. And so I think you'll find them pretty in-depth and unique, but they're all based in research and what the youth are passionate about. So the next question that they came up with is, we know the Detroit School Board has a policy in place about the possession of weapons in schools, but there's an exception to weapons under the control of law enforcement personnel and items approved by the building principal as part of class or presentations. In light of recent issues regarding gun violence within schools, do you think that the policy should change to allowing any weapons in or around, to change so that they don't allow any weapons in or around the schools from anyone?
Can you repeat the last part of your question? I didn't hear you.
In light of recent events, especially regarding gun violence in schools, they're wondering if you would be in support of a policy that doesn't allow any weapons in schools at all, including in the hands of law enforcement.
Gotcha. So I think the policy being put in place to not allow any type of guns or weapons inside the school system, I think it is a policy that should be enacted, because it keeps our children, our students, and keeps the security and the staff safe. And sometimes you have different issues that deal with inside the school board. So where you have these students and stuff, where you see all these mass shootings when they come to school with guns, right? And so if we act the law and say where you can't come into the school with a gun, but if you're a security officer or that type of people, you can have it inside the school system, you should have it somewhere else, and then you leave a liability to where a student or a staff member or anything can happen to where they're able to go inside the school system, have easy access to a gun to make those gun shootings and so go up. So I would not support a policy that would allow guns inside of the school system, because I think it's a liability and a safety issues, and it makes our children feel more vulnerable and makes our children feel unsafe.
Thank you. And kind of a follow-up on that is continuing on the idea of security and police in schools. So DPSCD just sent out a robocall to families last week, saying that they're going to be investing more money to bring back police officers onto school grounds at the start of the fall semester. And do you agree with this decision? And if not, where would you like to see the money spent instead?
Well, I think when it comes to the security of the school, is one of the most important things, is making sure that we have the proper security procedures put in place. So I do think that there should be law enforcement and security enforcement inside of the schools. And I know one of the issues that we've been having on DPS is having a shortage of security officers, or having a shortage of officers who are actually able to work the security of the schools. So how do we invest money into something, but make sure that we're investing the money into the right thing, but make sure that we're being effective if we're just going to invest money into security, but not investing the right dollars. And I think that goes back to the question that you asked earlier. How do you get the community involved with the school districts to make sure that our schools are a decent and a safe place for our children to come to? And that's when you go into those small businesses. That's when you go into those businesses. We have a lot of businesses around the city of Detroit that are licensed and insured, and they have reputable security companies. And I think those security companies should be able to come into a DPS and have contracts with DPS so that we are able to bridge that gap between those security soldiers to help out the security within our schools, but also it's helping out the community, because now we have community patrol people and community security officers, and they're working together to make sure that our students are safe.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you for your question.
So our next question is around the state's 2023 budget. So right now it includes $150 million for mental health within schools. Do you believe that is an appropriate amount? And what do you want to see done with those funds in DPSCD?
Thank you. So I'm still going to do the budget for the 22 school. I think that the $150 million amount, could be, a good amount, but it should be used in the right and proper manner, making sure that we actually have those mental support people that's on site on the schools that really need mental health. Because when you look at different things that's going on with COVID, different things that's going on in the world, and when I'm a firm believer that when children, and they come to school and they act up, I don't believe that no child is born to be bad, but it's circumstances that surround children that allow them to come and they have a place where they can act. So that's mental health is definitely important. And that money that was added to make sure that thing, I think is very important. That support should be there, but I think it should make sure that it's monetary properly and that it's used in a proper manner to make sure that we're actually giving support to our students in our schools.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The next question is, in what ways do you think DPSCD should make school curricula more diverse and representative of the student body?
Thank you. The school curriculum, the state of Michigan and what Detroit Public Schools has certain laws and regulations that they have to follow when it comes to the curriculum that we choose. But the school board does play a very important part in that. And being a teacher, myself, I think that one of the things that we're lacking in the curriculum is making sure that we are actually making sure that our children are able to comprehend what it is that they're being teaching. Because one of the things that in some of the curriculum is that when we go through these modules and classes, that they want to just, do a module one day, you have to make sure you set on schedule, but you're not actually making sure that you go back in that curriculum, make sure that the child is really comprehending. So I think that a lot of different things in the curriculum that are added should be more back into our fundamentals. When you talk about, reading, writing, and arithmetic, make sure that you are able to make sure that the child has a proper foundation, and if they need to go back, then we need to go back to make sure that the child actually comprehends the lesson. But I think that you should also add those support into the curriculum, like financial literacy should be, in the school system. You should have conflict resolution in the school system. You should have things that talk about, how you deal with distress and how you deal with mental health and how you deal with certain things when you're talking about making sure that you are properly prepared, that when you leave school, that you have the necessary things that you need in order to be successful, not just inside the classroom, but outside the classroom. So I think that we need to make sure we bring that support back into the curriculum, how we used to be back in the day, to where we're actually doing things in the curriculum that deals with basic life needs that we need to be successful outside of the classroom as well.
Is it me? Yeah. So my question is, what is your stance on the current uniform policy in DPSCD, as well as for the schools that have switched to a dress code? What's your stance on that dress code?
I'm sorry to hear the last part.
So what's your stance on the uniform policy and the dress code policy within DPSCD?
Okay. So, when it comes to, the uniform policy and the dress code, policy. And this was one of the things I actually was thinking about, earlier today. I think that we should be able to, if we're going to enforce a uniform policy, that we should be able to invest money in uniforms to where students are actually able to receive, uniforms, from the school when they are enrolled. I think that students should be in uniform at least, 3 to 4 days a week, but that we should have a relax on Friday to where students are able to come to school on Fridays to be able to have a lax day or just be cool or have a t-shirt or something on that's not inappropriate, but to be able to come on Fridays and they're able to relax the uniform policy. The reason why I think that it should be put in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is that it teaches our students how to be successful outside the classroom. Because when we get ready to go to jobs, when we get ready to go to work, they enforce uniform policies. They enforce being able to make sure you have the proper shoes and proper, pants and shirt on. So I think that that's very important that we're teaching that, we're growing that inside the school so that they'll know how to be able to deal with life outside of the schools. But I do think, like on Fridays, that children should be able to have, relax on school policy. And I also think that even though that school policy is put into places, that we should never turn a child away and tell a child that they have to go home because they don't have the proper uniforms, or maybe because they come to school one day and their shirt's not clean or their pants not clean. Give that child support, give that child love, be understanding. Don't just put a uniform policy there and say, well, if your child don't come to school in a proper uniform, he's not going to miss school. And then we come into the thing about chronic absences. See, all these different things that they are working together, because if you come to school, come to school Wednesday and maybe you don't have a proper uniform or your uniform not clean, maybe your washer dryer went out, the night before. Maybe you might be going to the homelessness issues and whatnot. So I think that policy should put in place, but that there should be different amendments to the policy that make sure that the child is still getting the education and the support that they need to be able to come to school with that uniform on, that a child should not be turned away or go home or may feel embarrassment because they don't have the proper uniform on. But that if that child is not able to get those uniforms, that we offer the support to those families to make sure that they have those uniforms.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So DPSCD just voted to acknowledge Pride Month in the school calendar. How will you stress the importance of advancing LGBTQ plus equity in classrooms?
Thank you so much. I think when it comes to, enforcing, the Pride Month and what they did to make sure that that's acknowledged, is that, we have to know and understand, that everybody is different and that everybody come on different paths or different journeys, and we should never judge one another, look at somebody different, but that everybody should be respected in the way that they, carry their lives, and everybody should be respected in the way that they choose to live their life. And that if that's something that they choose to do, is that we should be able to offer the support that they need to be able to feel comfortable. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The next question is, how would you increase language accessibility and translation services within DPSCD schools and in communication with families?
You said language and what else?
Language accessibility and translation services.
Okay, gotcha. So when it comes to the language and translation services, I think that DPS does have different things that put into place to where maybe if a person isn't speaking able to speak a certain language, that we have those translators available at the school. And even if they're not at the school, that there's a number or something they could be able to call to make sure that whatever needs to be translated is be able to be translated. And that if you're in, a population, like for instance, in Southwest Detroit, at Niners Elementary School, or those schools where that you have a high rate in a certain type of language, that they should invest more money to making sure that those interpreters are there on site in those schools to be able to offer the support that they need. Did I answer your question? Or I don't know, were we talking about ESE students?
Yeah, I think I can jump in for a minute, Serby. Yeah, I mean, I think the question is like, what could we do to improve? So we organize with parents in Southwest Detroit, but also outside of Southwest Detroit who are, and it's actually kind of even worse outside of Southwest Detroit. So for example, young people who don't speak English who are going to Cass Tech, for example. There's no Spanish speakers at Cass Tech who are staff members who can then talk with their parents. And so I guess like the question is like, what would you do to step it up? And what would you do to really properly invest in translation services and make sure that both inside the classroom and in communication with families, people have language accessibility?
Gotcha. And that's very important, you're talking about, the language accessibility in the students, because right, we do have students that are in Cass Tech and students that are in other schools that's not necessarily in Southwest Detroit. And I think that's when we as a board should look at our data and say, hey, we have these 40 or 50 students, and we have this many students in these different schools. Let's put a translator over there in that school to make sure that all of our schools be able to offer the support, or that we're able to accommodate people as much as possible. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want a child who wants to go to a school like Cass Tech, but is not able to get the support they need when we have, money available, resources available to where we could put, a translator over to make sure that that transition with their child. So being able to offer, those translators on sites that need to be on sites according to the district and according to the numbers of the school, but also being able to offer those services to where they're able to get translating services. So I think that's something that's very important.
Awesome. Thanks so much for adding on to that. So our next question is about infrastructure. So during the final weeks of classes this summer, Detroit schools had to end their days early due to the hot weather and many of the schools having no air conditioning. This is one of the many issues that students face due to the condition that DPSCD schools are in physically. How do you think this issue can be addressed by the DPSCD board?
Gotcha. So, one of the things that, the DPS board has done, and are doing, they have went to, some of the schools and put, air conditioners back in some of the schools, and they have invested, a large sum of money into the infrastructure of schools. So they are shifting schools around to make sure that we are addressing those problems, but I think that it's something that should have been done sooner to make sure that when we came back to this school year, that those issues were addressed. But those problems are being addressed, and there hasn't been a lot of money that has been invested into the Detroit Public School Board, so we're able to look at the schools that are not worth investing, because maybe the money that we invest in those schools is too much, and that it's better to just move them to another school. But I think that we should be into a place to where we're able to accommodate, to make sure that our children are not, cold in the wintertime, making sure that our children are not hot, in the summertime. And if we are not able to put those different things in place to make sure that our schools by next school year, this school year is done, is that we should put, portable air conditioners in those individual classrooms, do whatever we need to make sure that the children and the students and the staff are cool, but that we continue to make sure that we invest the right money in the right type of buildings to be able to accommodate everybody. Because you shouldn't feel that, okay, well, I can go to a school like Cass Tech that's, newly done, as air conditioners, heating in there, but you should be able to go to all schools and be able to feel and comfortable wherever you're at, because that shapes the culture, that shapes the environment, and that shapes being able to make sure that you're actually comfortable in learning.
Serby?
Serby, are you there? It looks like she's trying to talk, but that it's not coming through.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, now we can. Yep.
Okay. I don't know what happened. But a few members of our organization are a part of an organization called My Student's Dream, which organizes at the intersection of immigration and education justice. Would you commit to filling out a survey created by our youth members? We will send it to you within the week.
Yes, ma'am, I sure will.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So right before we wrap it up, I want to thank you so much for your answers today. We really appreciate you meeting with us. Our last question today is, if elected, would you commit to meeting with our youth within the 6 months of your election?
Thank you for that question, and thank you so much for being on here. And I think that, and if I was elected and being elected on the school board, that not only will I commit to meeting with the students within 6 months, but I think that we should be able to meet with the students within the first month, within the first few weeks, because the students and the children are a very vital part of making sure that our schools run the proper way, and the way they used to be. And when you look at the members on the school board, most of the members are now a lot of older members, and sometimes we operate based on how we think that things should be, and we have to be able to make sure that we are caught up with the times of our students. Because just because a child is a student, that doesn't mean that we can't learn from them. Just because they're younger doesn't mean we can't get ideas from them, because our students, they bring so much talents and skills and gifts to the Detroit public schools, that we just took the time to listen and be able to put a school board, a youth school board and council, to where we have a youth school board that meets with the DPS school board each and every month, to make sure that whatever that they have a voice too, to make sure that their ideas are being heard, and not only being heard, but making sure that those ideas are being implemented. So I think that's was very, very, very important, is that, as my campaign says, that we bridge the gap between our students and our families and our staff members and the principals, so that we are able to come together on one accord, because there's so much that our students offer to our schools, that we just take the time to listen to them and support them, then our schools will be in a much better place.
For sure. We really appreciate that. And I know that our youth in the collective are going to be really happy with that. So with that being said, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to working with you in the future. We really appreciate you making time for us today. And I can't wait till we potentially make some plans for the future.
Thank you. It was an honor and privilege to be on here, and I wanted to say congratulations. Continue to keep up, the good work that's going on in the community, because I truly believe that when students rise, we all rise.
For sure. Absolutely.
Thank you so
much.
Thanks so much.
All right, you're welcome. Bye.
Have a good one.
You too.